Welcome to the Principles of Performance podcast, where we discuss how to optimize your health, fitness, and performance. Drawing on decades of experience of working as coaches, consultants, and trainers to top performers, athletes, and teams from professional sports to top universities to the U.S. military, Eric DeGatti and Mike Perry discuss topics and strategies of how to perform at your highest level and be your very best. Join us and our friends and colleagues who are leaders in the fitness and performance industry as we investigate and challenge the most popular training, nutrition, lifestyle, and recovery protocols. And away we go. Here we are, Principles of Performance Podcast, episode number 35. We got another great episode lined up and another awesome guest. My name is Eric DeGatti, your host, along with my co-host, Mike Perry. Mike, how are we doing today?
Another day in paradise. It's beautiful here in Boston. It's about 30 degrees and gray. So it's a typical Boston day.
Yeah, well, that's what you get in Boston. So with that, I just note that when our guest comes on, he's got a Yankee hat on. So he's already warmed himself into my heart. And I've been a big fan of this guy's work for a while. So let me introduce Luka Hocevar. He was born and raised in Ljubljana. I think I did that right, Slovenia, and gives credit to basketball, fitness, and coaches, and taking him from going down the wrong path and in crime. And he actually became a professional basketball player in the elite European leagues, as well as the NBA Summer Pro League. After his pro career, he went on into his passion in fitness to affect other lives like the coaches who affected his. And he's been a coach for 14 years, building skill sets in every area associated with physical and mental performance. We're going to talk all about that, as well as body transformation. He's the founder and co-owner of Vigor Ground Gym in Slovenia, as well as Vigor Ground Fitness and Performance in Seattle, Washington. And both those gyms are highly recognized around the world, and they've worked with over 8,000 clients since 2006. He also started the Vigor Ground Fitness and Business Summit, one of the industry's most respected educational events for coaches and gym owners. And he's worked personally with over 3,000 clients, everything from NBA to NFL, UFC, MLB, college, high school, rehab patients, you name it. And so he's appeared everywhere. He's been in Men's Health, Stack Magazine, On It Magazine, Entrepreneur, HBO Real Sports. You go on down the list. He's been there. We'll have his whole bio in there, but if I keep going, we'll take up the whole show. And I want to get to him. So welcome, Luka Hocevar.
My pleasure. My pleasure to be on the show, guys. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you have quite an interesting backstory, Luka. So kind of tell us about your journey from Slovenia to here, and your career as a pro athlete, and to what you're doing now.
Yeah, I'm out. I've gotten decently good at making this pretty short, and I say that because, it's like I don't want to dive just into that, but the short of it is that basketball was kind of like a sport that I got into, and a lot of folks will go like, "Oh, did you love the sport?" This is where I try to make this point, by the way. Where I'm going to drop a lot of book names, because as I read a lot. But I was a short, scrawny kid, so basketball wasn't like, oh, I step on a court, all of a sudden, I got a Steph Curry shot and I'm dunking on people, right? Like I was the kid that wasn't getting picked at all. Stop, we got to pick that kid. He sucks. So it was more of a chip on my shoulder to make me practice ball. And as I got better, I loved it more. And I go to, Cal Newport's book, So Good They Can't Ignore You, where he talks about the passion hypotheses and, how people think that they're going to be passionate about something day one and that's it. And all of a sudden you love it and you just do it. But, as you improve your skill, you love something more. So I think that's important to kind of recognize. That was my first journey into basketball. I was just kind of pissed off and wanted to prove people wrong, and kept practicing a lot more than everybody else did, and got good at it. So ball was very much so became a passion for sure. And it was also the thing that kept me, like, my teenage years. I was very kind of, let's just say I was a knucklehead kid. And between the ages of like 13 all the way until I went to college in the US, there was some form of crime in my life, and it kind of escalated. And I would legitimately say, but if it wasn't for basketball, who knows, it wouldn't have been good. Because it was already not going down the right track as it was. And that's when I made a decision. With our basketball team from Slovenia, we went to Eastern Invitational Basketball Academy. So basically it's in Trenton, New Jersey. And that was our kind of, Slovenian team experience. Like, hey, let's go to the US, let's put our, play against the top high school players in the US, and it'll be a great experience. And it was. So I'm 17 years old, and I did really well there. And I really liked it. And there was the coach there, Wayne Jones, that was like, hey, you ever thought about going to college? And I was like, no, not really. Because, at that point in time, I was basically playing Division II pro ball, getting paid under the table. I was going to school here and there, but I was also, on the street selling dope. So I was basically, in my dumb kind of like teenage head, essentially like, why would I go to college, right? All I want to do is play pro sports. I was doing a bunch of dumb stuff that was making me money. And in that year, from about 17, 18, a lot of crazy things happened, from getting shot at to just a lot of stuff that was escalating. And throughout that year, Wayne kept emailing me. He was like, how are you doing? What's going on? This, that, the other. And he didn't know what was all going on in my life because I didn't share like the craziness of it. But he said, why don't you come down to Denver where I live, and we'll go to EIBC again for a couple of weeks. And basically, as without diving too deep into the story of all the stuff that was going on, I was like, yeah, why not? So, took my own cash that I had. And following year, I ended up going there. And, I had no idea how college recruiting works, by the way, right? So this is July. And there was a lot of schools like Quinnipiac, Delaware State, Western Michigan. They were all interested because I played really well, and said, hey, look, we'll give you a scholarship, but we're out of scholarships. Obviously, it's July, so you'd have to walk on. And, schools, basically all those schools are like 40, 50 grand a year. So nothing that we could afford. And so couldn't do that. But there was one of the coaches that was coaching me there at EIBC say, hey, like, I used to coach and play for a school in upstate New York. You're really good. You'll probably start year one. There's no full rides because it's a D2, but you can get some coverage, this, that, the other. And basically, I came home August 3rd. I made a decision, and started working on going to school in America. And a lot of it was because I was so deep into, let's just say, not good stuff, that it was a solution for me to continue to play ball, be able to do school, and get away from the craziness. And I did. I ended up going 2 years of junior college in upstate New York. Then I went for a full ride down in Southern Virginia. Went and played 3 years overseas. And from there, we started a gym. And it's like, this is a very fast forward thing. But there was always a constant. So I want to mention this because there was always a constant of fitness in my life. And it almost kind of, popped up later to me. It was just like, again, going back to Cal Newport's book, Deliberate Practice, right? So, in Career Capital, when I was 13 years old, my mom worked 2 jobs. She ended up, working at the bank, opening up a gym with a friend. It was a little gym. And that's when I started like lifting weights. And it was what put muscle on me. I was able to jump higher. I had some, very fortunate, I would just call myself lucky mentors, because the top powerlifting guy in the country trained at that gym. And at the bottom of the building, so in Europe, you have these physical education buildings, and that's where the gym was. There was 2 guys that trained, and one of them is Aljaž Pegan, hard name to say, but he was 5-time world champion in the straddle. I mean, these guys were like Olympic level gold medalists, and they'd come up and, they had their little gym at the bottom where they trained most of the time, but they'd come up and they'd show me stuff, bodyweight stuff and training stuff. And I didn't even know how, fortunate I was. So there I am at 13, 14, getting mentored by these really smart guys when it comes to training. And I really improved. And so the gym was the starting point of, kind of me and fitness and performance and getting into it. Because when I started doing that, now when I went back and played ball, I was like, oh, I can jump higher. Oh, I can bully a lot of these folks because I'm stronger than them. Oh, like I got quicker first step. So that's when I really kind of bought into it, for what it gave me. I was more confident because I went from being scrawny to not being so scrawny. And around, 14, 15 years old, I already started, back then it was like I'd buy Air Alert, which was like this plyometric program, which was dumb as can be. But nonetheless, I was starting to kind of throw myself into like learning. I was reading Speed Trap at like, 15, 16 years old with Charlie Francis stuff or Hershansky stuff. Like, so I was just like geeking out on all these things. But at that point in time, it was all, to improve performance in basketball. It wasn't like, oh, Luka's going to be a coach. It was like, I'm going to do everything I can and read everything I can and learn to be able to dunk. Obviously, every kid wants to dunk, be better on the basketball court. So that's where it started. And then that continued because I was just, voracious about studying sports performance all throughout, my basketball career. So once, I decided to kind of call it quits with ball, I was already that last pro ball year, I was already training people at a gym. And we started, it's funny you said the Strong First and RKC, because I started doing Pablo stuff in 2000, right? So like I did the first RKC in Europe, which was 2003, and had a lot of Steve Cotter and Steve Maxwell, good friend. Like way back. So I was doing KBs, long time ago, and that was all stemming from this trying to learn and improve. And then we started training folks with kettlebells. We're the first kind of coaches in, I would say, the whole of the Balkans that were training folks. And that's how the first gym got started. I went to my we were training folks outside in this park called Tivoli, and it just went from 2 people to 4 to 8 to 15. And I was like, man, listen, we got something here. My brother was reluctant because he's like, you're getting married, you're going to probably move to the US. And I kept bugging him, and we eventually opened up. Now it's been 16 years. That bio you read is a little old from the side. I gotta redo it because I'm 18 plus years in the coaching game, 16 years in the gym game now. And we started it was a 470 square foot room, and that was kind of like the first. It wasn't called Vigor Ground then, but that was our first gym. And now we've been in Slovenia for 16 years. We were the first gym of its kind, functional training gym, as much as I hate to say the word necessarily, but and then I went to the US, started from scratch and built the gym there, and that's been 14 plus years since I've had that one. So that's my caffeinated, sped up 550 words a minute a breakdown of it. So we can dive into details if you guys want.
Awesome. That's fascinating. And so, Mike, before you jump in, I do have to say, as someone who didn't have quite the childhood you had, Luka, I also had my years where, I ran with some of the wrong people. And I can tell you that none of the guys that I knew who were dealing were reading Berkashansky. so that is a first.
That's a combo, right?
That is quite a combo.
That's funny. Yeah. There's even coaches now that don't read that stuff anyway. So it is what it is. But so, you've had a kind of a crazy background. You've got a facility in the US and in Slovenia. But question I have for you are, what are the biggest differences we see in fitness when it comes to how the US approaches health and wellness, and how maybe, people do it overseas, et cetera? So in some cases, we probably have some advantages, but in some other cases, we can probably learn from, what people are doing overseas. Can you sort of fill us in on your thoughts and what you've seen from that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's going to make me dive into 2 different pockets. So, I'm going to give you like a frame from a gym owner. All right. And I'm just give you like these, because we kind of built it similarly. I think that not just Europe, but the rest of the world. I was always saying that they were trend wise probably about 5 years behind, and it's all obviously catching up because of internet and everything else, right? But that's legitimately how I saw it, was that once I got here, it was like things there were 5 years behind. Let me just give you an example. Okay, we had to fight really hard. This has now been probably 5 years, maybe 6 years, to get an EFT system into the gym. Okay, so imagine how many different recurring billing things you have in the US. Well, there it was just like we had to go to bank, and the bank was like, oh, you guys are a gym, I don't know if we can do recurring revenue type stuff, right? So and I say these examples to show just that like the trends always follow the US when it comes to fitness, whether it's the business side or whether it's the fitness side, right? Which you can say good or bad on that side of things. But here's a big one that will kind of shine a light on it, right? In the summer, we kind of started running into a big issue where in Slovenia, and this is Europe in general, people leave. People don't go to the gym, right? Because they're on vacation. They're outside. We would basically have a 50% drop off in clients, because people are so outdoorsy. They're so active that it's kind of like, well, yeah, no, I'm not going to be in the gym for the 2 to 3 months, right? That doesn't really happen in the US. So you look at these lifestyle factors that are different, and it is true. Like, lifestyle there is dramatically different, and I would say that in some countries it's gotten a lot worse. When you look at the UK, for instance, but if you go to Slovenia, people are just very active in general. You go out, people are walking around. Like, lunchtime is an hour and a half there, right? People are sitting down, they're at cafes, they're eating slowly, they're having coffee. It's a much more social environment, right? And you feel that inside of the gym too. For example, our gym in Slovenia, we sell beer. And if we didn't, people be pissed off. Okay. If you did it here, people be like, what the hell? Like, your fitness facility, you sell beer, and there people get done with a tough workout, be like, all right, give me a cold one. So there's this kind of like social aspect. Everything's, I would say, a little bit slower, which then dictates how you operate also as a gym and a coach. Of course, like, just baseline things such as membership rates, because what people on average make there is a lot less than they do here. So all those things come into play. But just on the side of, I would say, lifestyle, people are in general more active. Where in the US, if you think about it, like, many of our clients, the only activity or much of the activity that they do is in the gym, right? It's not like, okay, I'm going to go for a hike and we're going to go do this and we're going to do that, and then we're also going to come to the gym, right? It's like, I'm going to come to the gym. That's going to be my fitness and activity. And you see and feel that in many parts. And I've, been fortunate to live in many areas in Europe for more than, 6 months to a year. I'm honestly around the world. I've been living in a lot of places. And that's one of the things that pops up, and so you have kind of like both of these things that I say you got to look at, both as a business owner in a fitness space, and also, how people operate, because, that magic word culture, which we can maybe dive into a little bit more, but like the culture is different, and you have to honor and respect the culture. And you can't just go like, oh, nah, we're going to do it like this, because the people, they're going to be like, nah, man, you don't have beer, I'm out of here.
So I can't beer.
I can't see the notepad next to Mike Perry, but I know it has "sell beer" underlined as his notes.
Hey, listen,
for Skill of Strength.
No,
and it's only a matter of time.
It's reestablishing glycogen levels after a hard workout. That's what Absolutely. It is.
A lot of B vitamin in there. I mean, it's just the nutrients, man.
Everything you need. It's science.
Yeah. You're selling to the sold right there, Luka.
Yeah, we should deep dive into that one and be like post-workout hops. Yeah, I think
recovery beers. That's it, man. You got it. There's a new business right away, man. You're gonna have a distillery and a brewery right on your premises now.
All right. So in following a lot of your work, Luka, you have this consistent theme that I see of the concept of transformation, and you take it at multiple different levels. And I want to kind of start at the most fundamental level where people are looking at with body composition and changing their body. So what do you see as kind of like the foundational elements of where you have to get started in kind of your book on that end?
It's I think it's been a while, but I still kind of like that idea of, I don't know if you guys remember, Alan Cosgrove had like a hierarchy of fat loss pyramid.
Yeah, Alan's work is great.
Yeah, and I mean, basically, that's it. It starts with, if you look at the bottom of the pyramid, to me, it's lifestyle behaviors, which a lot of that falls into nutrition. This was, man, it's probably been like, I don't know, 6-7 years that, I started being on podcasts and saying like, look, you can't, if you're a fitness professional and you don't do nutrition coaching, I said in 5, 6, 7 years, you'll be a relic. And I think today, maybe not a relic yet, but it's like you're missing this massive component. It's like you're a basketball player. It's like, hey, I shoot incredibly well. I just don't dribble. It's like, okay, that's gonna be a problem. And that's, you have to get good at nutrition coaching. But here's the thing. This is what I think the next 5 years probably is going to be, that you're going to start becoming a little bit of a relic. Like, if you don't understand psychology and behavior change. That's, you got a lot of folks that's like know the X's and O's. Let me tell you a secret, right? Most clients know what they should do next. Okay. So if you sit down, I've done this a million times where I sit down with a client and go like, hey, what's some of the things that you feel like could help you, drop weight and drop body fat and get healthier? And they'll list them, right? So, that means they don't have an X's and O's problem, at least not the next step, right? So how do we get them to do it? This is all change psychology. This is all behavior change. This is all environmental, factors. And so we have to understand this stuff to then be able to help people implement this into their lives. I would argue, and I'm a very, very geeky person, right? Like, I mean, I study training in and out, left and right. But it's probably been about, 7 or 8 years where I completely realized that, like, man, like if I knew only 15% of what I know about training, I would still do exceptionally well with coaching clients if I was a good communicator, if I understood change psychology, if I got great at motivational interviewing and crucial conversations and, things of that nature to help guide people so that they could actually implement the X's and O's. So so the bottom of the pyramid is that, and I'm, if I'm speaking to people that obviously are fitness professionals, this is my challenge and my push that you should be studying that, as much, probably more, because of course, everybody that's geeked out on training has aggressively geeked out on training. And probably it's like, if you look at that bucket, the bucket of the other stuff has been very small. So you don't have to, it's kind of like if you're really strong, like you don't need to do more strength training, just maintain that, right? But your cardio sucks, your power sucks. Okay, cool. Let's bring those up. So, I think that's a really, really key component. And then beyond that, it goes strength training, right? I mean, if I could do only 3 hours of something, I would strength train. Now, I think, I've been very fortunate too that my neighbor, who's one of my closest friends, I mean, I call him neighbor because he's in Kirkland, not far from here, is Joel Jameson. And I've, we've been really good friends for over a decade now. So it's like, even if I came on any podcast and didn't say how important cardio is, he's giving me shit about it. But, so, from there, you have conditioning. But the thing is about, conditioning for a long time, where cardio was just kind of like, okay, this is how we burn calories to get leaner. Where to me now, it's like, I don't really think about it that way. I think it more about the health component. And then you kind of break down that cardio aspect of it and go like, okay, what does a person need? To be honest with you, most people need aerobic capacity work for health. So we kind of plug that in for clients in different ways, and try to structure something that they enjoy. So, them in Washington, it may be going for a hike. Okay. Yes, walking is not going to get you into zone 2. So we figure out different ways for them to do that more for the health component of it. But you look at that and it's like, okay, you got your lifestyle factors and nutrition, then you got your strength training, then you got your cardio, which it kind of breaks down into different pockets. And the other thing that I talk about a lot is like movement quality, which you might go like, well, doesn't that go into strength training? Sure. But to me, I call it movement hygiene. So we pretty much do this with every person, because every person that comes in here is usually got something wrecked. I mean, shoulders, neck, low back, knees, ankles, there's stuff going on, postures of life and stress, and this gets them. So if we try to get everybody to work on like about 10 minutes a day of, again, just like you brush your teeth, we try to get them doing, that's tooth hygiene. We try to do movement hygiene where they're doing specific movements, mobility drills. And if they do that every day, it makes them dramatically move and feel better, which then allows them to train better. Because again, we can only control so much, right? If they're here 3 to 5 hours a week, still a lot of time that they're not here. So our mission is to be able to essentially I call it brainwashing them to greatness. And those are the components. And I know that's kind of like a very 10,000 foot view, but again, like, simplicity wins, because all I really care about is like, if you can get somebody doing things consistently, the truth is, for general population, for most people, if they do 5 reps or 8 reps, it won't matter, right? If they keep coming in for in a course of the year. So, yes, love periodization. We can dive deep into that, but in the grand scheme of things, if Susie, is doing 5 to 8 reps and, Jane is doing 8 to 12 reps, but they both stay consistent throughout the year, it's not going to be like one of them is going to be insanely better, have insanely better results. To me, what's going to make the bigger difference is, did they consistently come in and strength train? Did they consistently do their cardio? Did they do their movement hygiene? Did they consistently improve their nutrition and lifestyle habits, right? And that's who we are. Like we're essentially Sherpas. You know, it's people think, I think of coaches as these like let's go, you know, and I think 80% of the time you're a Sherpa, right? You're guiding this person to their Everest. And then, you know, 10% of the time you push them, you know, and 10% of the time you might pull them when they're down, but 80% of the time it's guiding them. And, you know, and to become a great guide, you have to actually practice that. You know, you have to build the skill of being a great guide. And that's where, you know, those skill sets that we talked about a little bit earlier come into play: communication, listening, empathy, you know, interviewing, being good at questions, being good at, again, like body language. Even, you know, I studied and did courses of body language. I don't know how many, with, you know, FBI and DA experts and all this stuff, because I was like, man, what are all the things that I can do to just get better at this stuff, right?
Hey, everybody, a quick break in the action here. Hope you're enjoying the show, and we appreciate you listening. We're working hard to bring you the highest quality content and best guests every single week. So if you could do us a big favor and go and like and subscribe to the show on whatever platform you get your podcasts on, it would be greatly appreciated. Be sure to listen at the end of the show also to find out where you can find out more information about our courses, as well as a special discount code for all our listeners. Thanks again, and let's get back to the show.
So, you know, I love the fact that, you know, you were talking about, you've studied all this work on periodization and Russian sports science, and you have the knowledge, and then you realize, like, it's good to have the knowledge, but at the end of the day, you're probably not using that much of it, because there are, you know, the psychological barriers and the building habits and everything else that goes into it. And it's funny you say that. So I've been doing this for 20 years as well. And over the last few years, I've said to myself, I've actually been studying a lot more about psychology and habits than anything else, because if you don't create that rapport and that buy-in, and the trust is not there, then I don't care how much you know about, you know, depth jumps and sports science and periodization and macro meso cycles. It doesn't make a difference at the end of the day, because if they don't trust you and they don't want to spend time with you and they don't feel as if they're part of the journey with you, then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many people you can impress with the big words. So, but kind of changing gears a little bit, you know, looking at your content, you seem to use like a little bit of everything. You seem to draw from, you know, various types of modalities, whether it's kettlebells, body weight training. I've seen you do a lot of mobility work. But the question I have is so when everybody's looking for, like, what is the magic bullet? What is the thing that we need to do? How do you suggest that we take all of this great information and make it simple and easy to follow, so when people do start their fitness journey, they're going to be successful?
I mean, you know, with the way that I started doing content, it was just like, it's very easy. I remember back in the day, somebody was like, man, just go niche, you know, just show this and teach this. And it to me, it's weird, because it's like, but that's not what people do. It's not what I do, right? Like, I mean, do you do mobility and warm-ups? Yep. Okay, cool. Do you do strength training? Yep. Do you do conditioning? Yep. What about food? Yep. What about right? Like, it's all a part of it. It's all a part of us changing. You know, if I like buckets because it's simple for people. So when we, you know, educate people, we say, look, there's 4 things. There's training, there's nutrition, there's mindset, there's recovery. Kind of those are the kind of 4 buckets that we look at for your, you know, your life. And then we're going to improve in each of those buckets depending on what you need. So that's how I approach, I would say, education on the platforms that I use, right? Like, is all these things. Now, your question is like, because for most people, it can become overwhelming, right? Well, shit, like there's this and there's this and there's this and there's this. So this is where I'm a big believer, and I'm obviously biased here, but let me share some examples too in my life and in different parts of my life, so I can kind of relay and it will make sense. Is, you know, having a path and a plan makes, I always say, when there is no path and plan, you're going to go to default, right? And if your default is struggle, then that means you need a path and a plan, right? Because whatever you've been doing hasn't been working, right? And the moment that you go like, whatever I'm doing is like, it's not working that way I want it to, then you got to go some other route. And that's where I'm like, look, who is it that you follow? Who is it that you respect? Who is the person that you're like, man, they've taught me a lot and I trust them, you know, but going back to the word trust. And it could be obviously offline, but it could be online too. And you go and you invest in a plan. And look, the plan can be an ebook. It can be, you know, a physical book. It could be online coaching. It could be going to the gym. You know, obviously I believe face-to-face training and accountability is always going to be the best, but that way you have a path and you have a plan. And if you have a person that understands this stuff, they can guide you, because it can be a lot. Like, look, this is one of the few spaces that if you were like, look, I got legal issues, right? And I need help with legal issues. Hold up, let me go read this book and this book and this book, and it's, fuck, this is all confusing, right? Like, you lose your mind. But so you go like, hey, let me get a lawyer, right? So I think it's the same thing and again, I think there's an ascension here, right? Where you can start with, I mean, I've had people that go like, hey, I read a magazine article you wrote that had a program in it, and I started doing a program, and like, it gave me results. Because what it does is you lose the anxiety of everything else, and you're like, here's the plan. You know, is this the best plan in the world? Well, for the next 4-8 weeks, whatever, it's what I'm going to be doing, right? So I think that's one of the biggest components. It was one of the, I did, you know, this is kind of like, there's tons of studies been done on this, you know, the 7 factors of people that lose the weight and keep it off, right? Because there's been all these percentages floating around, and some people say they're right or wrong, but that, you know, only 5 to 10% over the course of 3 years that lost weight actually keep it off, which is sad, you know, and it's something that we're all trying to change. But those 5 to 10%, one of the 7 things that were factors were that they were on a structured program, right? The second one is that they had some type of social support and community. Okay, so again, you look at those, I feel like those are actually like really big factors, okay? Because I feel the environment is the thing that's really going to help you dramatically change your behaviors. And, you know, we know that like people adhere to social standards, right? Oh, look, you know, because when we grow up, think as babies, like, what do? We mirror other people to learn, right? Like, oh, they're doing this, I'm going to do that, right? That's literally how we learn. So that's why even in marketing and psychology, it's so powerful to understand, like, oh, look at these 100 people, they're going and jumping off the bridge, I'm going to do it too, right? Not necessarily always the smartest thing, but that's how we operate as humans. So if I join in a community, in an environment where the social standards are, I exercise because I want to be fit, I want to be a leader for my family, I want to, you know, show them how to be healthy and strong, then people are, oh, that's what we do here, right? That's what culture is. This is how we do things here. Oh, I'm, you know, part of a community where people are trying to improve their nutrition because that's going to help them be leaner and healthier and have better blood work and feel better and have more energy and live longer, right? So now, as a part of that community, I want to adhere to these standards of this tribe. So, which means that, well, the fastest way to change behaviors actually is to join a community that has the behaviors that you want to build, right? You know, I mean, that's an absolute cheat code. And so, you know, this is where kind of going back to like how I've done this, apart from like, you know, I hired coaches. Like when I was coaching, I hired coaches to write my programs, to coach me. I'd pay trainers that were like, you know, I heard with the best trainers, and I pay them a high fee, and I'd get training sessions in with them because I'd want to learn from them. You know, since for 17 years, I've been in some type of mastermind and coaching program. I have a bunch of my own coaching, you know, business coaching businesses, but I'm still in like, you know, right now this year, I'm in 3 different things that I'm investing in. And it's like, it's a lot, like a big investment. But what am I doing apart from, hey, here's this person I trust, I know they're great in this sector, I want to be part of this tribe so that my standards are now higher. Oh, these guys are doing this in real estate and they're killing it and they understand this. Okay, great. Let me go here. Let me learn. Let me adhere to these standards, right? So this is the type of stuff that I think in fitness and nutrition, if people truly understood, you know, how powerful it is that, yes, like we can talk about the X's and O's, but what if, you know, you just join a group of people that already have what you're trying to build, right? Now there's the other side of it. And we started talking about, I got into groups of people that were doing things a certain way, but it was criminal. So, you know, to not be excluded, because that's one of the most painful things for humans, right? Is to be cast out of your tribe. I had heard to the standards of the tribe, and those were criminal activities, right? So again, that realization to just go, man, like, let me look at my environment, who I surround myself with, and how can I change that for it to, you know, to what I call like raising the thermostat, right? Like if you're 72 degrees, but you want your life to be at 95 degrees, man, you better surround yourself with people that are on fire so that they bring your temperature up, and that's essentially, it's a skill. Like, do that, you can do that today. For most people, they can do that today. Like, they can make a choice and go like, hey, I'm going to invest, or I'm going to do, and sometimes it's not even about paying money. It's about, hey, can I tag along with 2 friends that are super active? You mind if I, start coming to the gym with you? Do you mind if I start going on this, that with you? That's insanely powerful. And like, you could choose it in any sector of your life. If it's business, it's like, okay, like, the environment I'm in is not helping me become a better business person. I need to change that. So that's, I riff on that a lot because I think it's so powerful. It's I'm a brick and mortar guy. I got a bunch of online businesses too, but I'm a brick and mortar guy. Like I'll always will be, because I love community. Like, I love it. Like, I love it, shake hands and kiss babies and be able to coach people in person and do charity events and, bring people together. I think that it's, and you could look, if you want to dive into studies, we can do that all together all day. The book it's actually called Together, by, man, I'm forgetting the name right now. He's a former Surgeon General of the U.S. But it talks about loneliness and, how basically loneliness is as detrimental to mortality as anything else, right? So meaning that social connection, it's health. So when we look at all these factors of training, nutrition, so on and so forth, like, communities and social connection is right up there and might even beat all of those, right? Because if you don't have a healthy community and social connections, you're going to struggle. Like, and again, this is statistically proven, right? So we got to take that into account too. That's my 2 cents, by the way, that turned into 99 cents. So.
No, it's great stuff. And I'm being a big reader myself. There's multiple books that actually talk about that, the connection, social connection being one of the big factors in longevity. There's a book, Ikigai, where they studied, they studied people who were centurions, who in Okinawa, and they looked at certain themes. And one of the 4 tenets of what had them living, not only living to 100, but thriving to 100, was that social connection. But I want to kind of go back to one of the things you mentioned is part of what you're doing now, and it's kind of coaching fitness professionals on career success. Now, our industry's gone through some massive changes, especially since, when I started, 25 years ago, and especially now in the past few years with the pandemic. We had Dr. John Russin on a couple months ago, and he gave some stats that he had acquired that were pretty remarkable in terms of not only how many pros that we lost in our industry, but also how many new faces are in there. And if you've gone out and, like we have, and go out and teach workshops, you see that it's so many new faces out there. And now they have to navigate a different landscape than when we started. When I started my first facility, it was 2002. And it was like, how good am I versus the other guy who's down the street? And that was pretty much it. And I could know that, hey, look, I'm better than him. But now you got to compete against, online training, and you got social media influencers, and it's not just me and the guy down the street. It's me and some, mountain man with his shirt off eating organ meats in the middle of the woods, taking steroids. Like, so like, how do you tell trainers how to have a sustainable career in that environment?
Listen, you asked me a question. This could be, this could be a week-long tutorial right here, but let's go. I still think here's the thing, right? Like, I actually think that if most people that are in person, let's just talk in person, if they operated more like it was 2002, they would do exceptionally well. That's actually my advice for a lot of folks now is going like, look, because as soon as there was this explosion of social media, and by the way, I'm a fan of social media. Okay. So I won't be the one that goes like, oh, turn it off, this, that, the other. It's just a reality that we exist in. And I think you can, you should use it. You shouldn't let it use you. But with that said, what people started doing, and I coach I coach so many people in the fitness business space that I've seen this happen, right? Where it's because it's a focus thing, right? Social media garners attention. So because it does, a lot of coaches focus on it, right? Meaning, oh my God, what are these people doing? I got to do this. I got to run ads. I got to do more content, which a lot of times, yes, you should. And we'll get to that. But it makes them completely not focused on community. Okay. So this, you know, the way that we build businesses, I'm sure same as you did. I mean, I was like and I still do, you know, it's like, I know every business locally. We do joint venture partnership. I do lunch and learns every single week. You know, eventually I got to, like, I was doing a lunch and learn almost a week, you know, getting in front of different businesses and talking about nutrition and fitness, and at the end making an offer for, you know, trying us out. Right. So, you know, charity events, we still do a ton of them, but like being involved in a community, you know, I have this 6x6 strategy where it's like, you know, 6 days a week, talk to 6 people. But back then, you know, in 2006, it was like, you had to talk to people. You couldn't DM them, or you couldn't message them. You had to actually talk to 6 people per day. And that worked. And the thing is like, it still does. I actually think it works even more now because people have gone away from it so much. So what I believe, it's not an either or, it's an and it's trying to merge and gel these two things together. Is how do you, you know, can you be human? And I say, think about this analogy, right? That if some, you know, crazy electrical wipeout happens, and like we have, you know, there is no internet, there's no phone, for 6 months, you know, will your business die? Will it survive, or will it thrive? And you should build the business in a way that it thrives, even if that happens, because referrals, word of mouth, you're in the community, people know you, right? You do seminars and workshops in front of people, right? And then you become that local expert. Now, that second part, the gelling of it, is that if you just have some strategy and you understand that, you know, creating content like this podcast, or, you know, video is a skill set, and that it doesn't take as much time as you think to be able to, you know, what if you spend 30 minutes a day or an hour a day on content, you know, shooting videos, writing, maybe, you know, making tweet posts or writing a blog once a week. And, you know, you have that time. And I know, because part of what I do is when people tell me that they're so busy, we start analyzing their day, and we realize that like 40% of their day is busy and completely unproductive, right? It's just people are doing stuff that is not moving their life forward, their business forward, their health forward, right? But it's packed, it's busy. So I'm like, okay, well, here's 4 hours in a day that you're actually not doing anything productive. What if you spend an hour of that, you know, creating content on platforms? And if the only thing that you thought about was like, every piece that I create should be valuable to the person that's reading it, right? Or watching it, whatever it may be. And you keep doing that, a lot of great things are going to happen. Now, that's without going into like strategic, tactical stuff that you can do with it. I'm saying just as a framework, because, you know, back in 2006, I started writing articles because that's what, you know, that was what was available, right? So I don't know how many articles I wrote on my own blog before somebody was like, oh, would you write one for mine? And it was, you know, bigger names and stuff like that. You know, then social media came along, then it was Facebook. Then, you know, I started doing YouTube like 13 years ago or something like that. But it was like never with this crazy intent of becoming a YouTuber or whatever, right? It's just like, all right, let me put this content that I have that I think is valuable on here, and then just keep doing that. Now, it's more of a long-term strategy. I believe every coach should do it. I believe that if you create content, it actually makes you a better coach, because you have to distill. Like, if I have to make a 60-second video about something, to make it clear and concise, I have to be good at doing that. If I write an article about something, like, I have to distill, you know, and make it clear to the person reading it, and hopefully entertaining enough, right? So it means that you actually have to get better at communication and coaching if you're creating content. So again, it's all about the frame that you look at it through. And to me, again, like, we wear many hats. If you're a coach, or especially if you're a gym owner, I mean, which hat, you know, like, which hat do I have on right now? What am I going to have afterwards? I'm going to have the coaching hat on. Then I'm going to have a business building hat on when I have a meeting, a business meeting, you know. Then after that, I have a strategic hat on. Then I got, you know, you're constantly changing hats. And essentially, if you're a coach in industry that's starting, and let's just say that's your first 3 years, I'll call that starting, right? But you're going to have to change hats and understand that, hey, I just coached for 4 or 5 hours. Now I got 2 hours, you know, off, and I'm going to spend 30 minutes marketing, and I'm going to spend 30 minutes, you know, creating content. I'm going to change my hat, and then I'm going to get my workout in, and I'm going to be back at it, for example, right? You're just changing hats all the time. And it is, and the thing is, it's part of the game. If you want to be successful, you know, I'll be the first person to be like, look, it's like, what, you know, sometimes I'll get coaches is like, oh man, like I'm training people in the morning and then I got to come back later. I'm like, if you're absolutely hell bent against not doing that, especially your first 5 years, you probably shouldn't be in this industry, because what do? Like we show up when clients can show up, to help them, to coach them, to help them transform their life. And if you're like, yeah, but I want to, you know, I want to go 8 to 2 or 3, I'm like, good luck. You know, like you're not going to be in this thing for a long time. You know, and then sometimes it's like, well, then I'll go online. It's like, all right, but you got to coach
the free ticket,
life.
right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like and again, this is why I can riff on this stuff, man, because I do have some strong opinions around, you know, personal training and online coaching, and I'm all for online coaching, by the way, you know, but as a career thing, I believe that like you cannot be a great online coach without coaching people in real life. Like how does that even happen? Like you've never, that's like being like you're great at, you know, Call of Duty, right? Like I'm great at war. No, bro, you're great at Call of Duty. Like if I put you in
I
a real
love
war,
that.
like you will shit your pants and you won't know what to do. And to me, it's, you know, I mean, it's a strong analogy, but I'm trying to make a point here, right? Because it's like when you deal with humans and you watch movement and you see all these intricacies and you're like, I wrote this plan out and now this plan is not working because I see this person not getting XYZ. You got to have thousands of hours of that, to where now when some online coaching client, you know, is working with me, I'm like, yo, send me a video. I actually have all these different things that I have taken from experience and computed in my head and like started going like, okay, here's what's probably happening here. That person that's been, you know, coaching a little bit part-time for 2-3 years and now, you know, they're going all blown full in online. That's, man, that's really, really tough. It's just not gonna, you just don't have the deliberate practice. You just don't have that experience. And I believe that you can't really be as good as you should be for your clients. Right. So to me, it's an ethical thing too, because it's like, like I'm not saying don't do it, but like you should be busting your butt in the real world, training people, because that's going to make you a significantly better online coach. Right. So yeah, any of those topics you want to dive in, I will riff on them all day long. Because again, it's like I love this. I absolutely fucking love this industry. It's you know, it's my mission on that side, is that's why I do the business coaching side of it, is because I want to, you know, talking about how the statistics of how many people left, like there's a lot of great coaches that left. And I wish that they didn't, right? That they had essentially, like that they had more skill sets in the areas to help them be good at business. Because think about this, right? If that coach has you know, a small gym with 120 clients and they go out of business, you know, sure, some of those clients will go somewhere else maybe, but like a lot of people lost their community and their ability to now, you know, be fit and healthy. Okay, so that's the way I look at it. But here's the thing: if they went from 120 to 240, now you double the amount of people that they're affecting and changing their life, right? That's my mentality, and I've seen it. Like, man, you're really, you know, there's coaching and there's the business of coaching. Wow, you're great at coaching, you're not good at the business of coaching, and it's part of the reason why I teach that, because I really, you know, think that we're in an industry that truly, you know, like not corny, but like truly does make this insane difference in people's lives. Um and like, you know, what better to do? Like you know, I wake up every morning, tired or not, I'm like, man, like I get to do this. This is amazing. So that's why I'm fired up to try to have more of us, you know, of us.
Absolutely. I tell people when I talk is that it's the coolest job in the world, because we can change lives, but we're not under the pressure of having to save lives. Like if somebody clutches their heart and goes down in the middle of a restaurant, don't say, call a strength coach. You know what I mean? Like, but at the same time, we can still affect that person's lives, so they hopefully never clutch your chest in a restaurant. So the thing that I keep kind of hearing from you that I love throughout this whole show is talking about skill sets, and the skill sets of just basically being more human. And like one of those skill sets I'm constantly trying to work on is listening, being more present. And even throughout as you're talking, like there's stuff I want to see how well I did. Like I see some common themes, regardless of whether I'm trying to lose body fat, whether I'm trying to build a personal training business, or I want to be able to run faster, jump higher. Is that like there's community, right? And then there's who you surround yourself with and support you, or the opposite. And then there's communication in terms of how you relate, and it not only express, but also take in information. And so I see but there's also the aspect of like, you still got to be good. Like you can't skip over the fact that you need to be good, because you could be the greatest guy in the world, but if you show up and you can't deliver results, like you need to actually have that skill set of being a viable, a person who delivers value. So is there any that I missed? Is there any big things that you lean on that kind of transcends across all you do?
No, here's one point I want to make, but you brought this up because I think it's such an important point. Have you guys read The Goldmine Effect?
Have not, but it's on the list now.
Excellent book. So but really, look, you can't avoid, some people are tall, like I've been gifted, and I call myself 6 foot. My girl will tell me I'm 5'11" and a half, but I'm, in my sneakers, I'm 6'1"-ish. So, and then when I played pro, they always give you an inch. So I was like 6'2". But,
isn't there no such thing as 5'11"?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's all rounded up, baby. But some people get gifted, height, this, that, genetics in certain ways, nature, nurture. And so by the time you're XYZ years old, you may be better than somebody at something else. But if you read, The Goldmine Effect, The Talent Code, I mean, I could go down a list of, these different books, but it's, it is a certain amount of hours. And the argument of how many hours it is, it's irrelevant, whether it's 10,000, here's the thing, for certain areas, it's more than 10,000, right? For certain areas, it's less than 10,000. But the kid in Brazil, by the time they're 13 years old, plays 10,000 soccers in the favelas with no shoes on. Okay. And the kid in the UK, mom takes him to soccer, 3 days a week for an hour and a half. How are you going to be better than the kid in Brazil? Like how, right? And so I promise I'll put all these together, because coaching, how are you going to, like, the amount of deliberate practice hours, communication. So, okay, I want to be better at listening and understanding. Great. Like I'm a weirdo. So on my phone, if I will have things blocked out, like practice this, right? I'm going to practice this thing that I want to get better at. And it's like, I'm going to keep adding these hours up, until, like, I'm somewhat obsessive. But if you want to, like, you should plug in, I call it the watch and the wallet analogy, right? Like that you're committed to your watch and your wallet. So your watch is like your calendar. If you tell me like, oh, I'm super committed to this, and I look at your schedule and your schedule doesn't have that in there, you're not committed to it. Okay. Or like, I want to be the best in the world at this. And I'm like, wow, you're working at it 1 hour a week. Like there's people that are working at it 25 hours a week, right? When golf exploded in Korea, which is South Korea, which is, there's one lady which I can't remember the name of, that, won the PGA. And then everybody kind of was like, wow, like we can do it. Now, in South Korea, it's like, look, if you're not training if you're training less than 25 hours a week, like you won't be in the top 5%. Like there's just no way, oh, you're only training 15 hours a week right? And these are extremes, but my premise is here that, like, the things that people say that want to improve, like you can, I don't care who you are, you can get better at it. Can you become Usain Bolt? Probably not, but like, can you dramatically increase your speed? Yes. Can you be the greatest communicator on the planet? Maybe not, but like you can become really good. But the thing is, I got to see your watch and your wallet. Now, again, your watch is your schedule. Your wallet is like, where are you investing your money? So I mentioned it earlier, and I said, I wanted to get better at I hired some of the top marketing masterminds in the world, whether it was coaching, the same, whether it was this, that, and the other. Like I put my money there, right? Like I buy books, I got like an insane amount of books, read books, courses, because that's where my money's going, because that's showing what I'm committed to and want to improve. So go back to that Goldmine Effect, is that you're like, it just takes a certain amount of hours and work to become at a certain, to be at a certain level of the skill set. And the great thing about it is that like anybody can do it, right? Especially things like, for instance, let's take, for me, this was kind of big aha moment, because, no matter how good you are, at a certain point in time, your body's going to start not being as fast and jump as high, and there's going to be wear and tear, and like you can't play basketball forever, right? And it's, and you might make it to 35 years old, and that's a pretty long career actually, right? So yeah, I'm sure this one's running long, but I'm going to make the point. And so the coaching, you can continue to get better forever, right? You can continue to get better forever. And so using that idea of like, if I continue to practice, I can become world-class at this. Now it might take me X, Y, Z years, but I can do it. And that's powerful. And it's the same thing for nutrition and the way that you eat and your training and everything else. It's like, can you elevate the amount of work, deliberate practice that you're putting into it? And if the answer is yes, I guarantee you in the next 6 months, a year, you're going to be so much better. And I feel like that's a very empowering belief and empowering knowledge that like you can do that, right? So I wanted to wrap that together because it's like all these different things that we talked about. There was a specific amount of deliberate practice that went into them that, allows me or anybody else to be good at what they do and get results from it.
Well, you definitely gave me some new ones for my Amazon wish list, which continues to grow. So I appreciate that, and certainly appreciate all your time. And before we wrap up, I want to kind of get, what you're working on now. What's some of the new and exciting things you got in 2023, Luka?
Whew, that's a kind of a long list. Well, this year I started basically a course business. So I launched my first course. It was called Small Group Personal Training Mastery. And really, it's kind of like my model of how I run small groups, from the program design side of things to the coaching, to the experience of the client, to how to market it, promote it. People get a year worth of programs. And so there's going to be more of that happening this year, along with a kind of continuity business where I educate coaches. I have a book coming out. I can't really say the exact. I'm hoping it's going to be at least by the end of the summer. It's almost done, and then it's got to go through, some more edits and pictures and this, that, the other. So I'm excited about that. It's a book for coaches how to succeed in industry. Essentially, still doesn't have a name. And on top of that is, besides the gym, where it's always the heart of everything. We have this massive project that me and one of my friends that owns the biggest basketball academy here in Seattle, we're trying to buy a building and put a basketball academy and a Vigor, kind of make it the best basketball performance place in the Pacific Northwest. That's like one of those big things that we're working on right now. And there's a bunch of underlying other things there, but like I'm very hardcore in the education side of things. So besides coaching here, because I'm every day, I coach every day, whether it's pro athletes, sports teams, kids, just regular clients. I do that every day, and I try to share and educate on the coaching side, and then also on the business side by running my businesses. So that's really the kind of the focus of 2023, and it's going to happen through courses, through the book. I'm speaking an insane amount this year, and it continues to pack and kind of pack on, which is fine and great because I love it. But that education is a big part of it.
That's awesome. Great stuff, and good for you. And we appreciate everything that you're doing. I want to thank you for your time and coming on here. And we will certainly have the links to all that stuff so you can check out more about Luka, because he's, as you can tell, pretty remarkable guy. But and also want to thank you for listening. And this has been the Principles of Performance podcast.
Thank you for having me on, man.
Thank you for listening to the Principles of Performance podcast. If you've enjoyed our content, please like and share on your social media outlets, as well as subscribe and give us a review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your preferred platform is to listen to. For more information on the Principles of Program Design courses and workshops, visit us at www.principlesofprogramdesign.com and follow us on all of the social media channels where we post new content every day. To save 10% on any PPD courses, enter the discount code PRINCIPLESPODCAST10 at checkout. If you have any questions we can answer or suggestions for the show, you can email us at info@principlesofprogramdesign.com or message us on social media. Thank you again for your support.